Kyle Harrison stood near the large window of the space station, looking out at the stars. He had been waiting for 3 hours, and his patience was starting to wear thin. As Earth's chief ambassador, he knew this meeting would change everything. The aliens were finally coming to meet humanity face to face. The station, called Unity 1, floated in orbit above Earth. It had been built specifically for this moment. Every nation on the planet had contributed something to its construction. Now, representatives from 12 different alien species were approaching in their massive ships. Lisa Patterson stood beside Kyle, her arms crossed over her chest. She commanded Earth's entire defense network, and she did not trust these visitors. Her instincts told her something was wrong with this whole situation. "They should be here by now," Lisa said, checking her watch for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Kyle nodded. "Their ship entered our solar system an hour ago. They are taking their time on purpose. This is a power play." "I do not like power plays," Lisa replied. The room fell silent as a bright light appeared outside the window. A ship materialized from nowhere, its surface shimmering like water under sunlight. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The vessel was 10 times larger than Unity 1 and shaped like a massive crystal. Within minutes, the aliens began their approach. Kyle and Lisa moved to the docking bay, where a team of scientists and diplomats waited nervously. Everyone wore their best formal attire, though no one knew if the aliens would even care about such things. The airlock opened with a hiss. The first alien to step through was tall, almost 9 feet in height. Its body looked like it was made of living glass with light moving through it in strange patterns. This was Zekthor, leader of the Vryn Empire and spokesperson for the Galactic Coalition. Behind Zekthor came 11 other aliens, each more unusual than the last. One looked like a floating mass of tentacles. Another resembled a walking tree made of metal. A third was covered in thick armor that seemed to be part of its own body. Kyle stepped forward and extended his hand. "Welcome to Unity 1. I am Kyle Harrison, representing the people of Earth." Zekthor looked at the offered hand, but did not take it. Instead, the alien being produced a sound that the translation device converted into words. "We acknowledge your greeting, human Kyle Harrison. I am Zekthor of the Vryn. We have come to discuss Earth's entry into the Galactic Coalition." The formal meeting began in the station's main conference room. The alien sat on one side of a long table, while the human delegation sat on the other. Kyle noticed that none of the aliens seemed impressed by anything they saw. They looked around the room with what he could only describe as bored expressions. "Humanity has finally achieved faster-than-light travel," Zekthor began. "This is the minimum requirement for coalition contact. We have been watching your species for 87 of your years, waiting for this moment." "You have been watching us?" Lisa interrupted. "Without our knowledge or permission?" "Of course," another alien replied. This one looked like a massive insect with 6 arms. "All primitive species are monitored. This is standard practice across the galaxy. You should feel honored that we find you worthy of contact at all." Kyle felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. "We appreciate the Coalition's interest in Earth. What exactly does membership involve?" Zekthor's body flickered with different colors. The translation device indicated this meant the alien was pleased. "The Coalition maintains peace and order across 47 galaxies. We share technology, resources, and protection. Member species contribute according to their abilities and receive benefits according to their needs." "That sounds reasonable," Kyle said carefully. "However," Zekthor continued, "there are different levels of membership. Given humanity's biological limitations, you would enter as a protected species under Level 5 status." Lisa leaned forward. "What does Level 5 mean?" The insect-like alien answered this time. "It means you cannot make your own decisions regarding galactic matters. A guardian species will be assigned to manage your affairs and protect you from threats you cannot handle yourselves." You want us to give up our independence? Kyle asked, his voice sharp. You misunderstand, Zekthor said. This is not punishment. This is reality. Humans are weak compared to most galactic species. You have no natural armor, no biological weapons, no enhanced strength or speed. Your lifespans are remarkably short. You are fragile creatures who would not survive the harsh conditions of galactic civilization without protection. Kyle looked at Lisa, who was now gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles had turned white. Around the room, the other human delegates were whispering to each other in shock and anger. We have survived on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years, Kyle said slowly. We have built civilizations, created art and music, developed science and technology. We have explored our entire planet, and now we are reaching for the stars. This does not sound like a weak species to me. One of the aliens made a sound like laughter. Your planet is a garden world with perfect conditions for carbon-based life. You have never faced real hardship. The galaxy is not like your comfortable little world. There are species out there that would destroy humanity without a second thought. The Coalition offers you safety from these dangers. In exchange for our freedom, Lisa added coldly. Zekthor's colors shifted to a darker tone. You speak as if you have a choice in this matter. Let me be clear. The Coalition has made this offer out of generosity. If you refuse, we will place an energy barrier around your solar system. You will be quarantined here forever, unable to join the galactic community. No trade, no technology exchange, no contact with other worlds. You will be alone in the universe. The room erupted into angry voices. Human delegates were shouting questions and protests. The aliens sat quietly, unmoved by the emotional display. They had clearly expected this reaction and did not care. Kyle stood up, raising his hand for silence. It took several minutes for the room to settle down. When it finally did, he spoke directly to Zekthor. The people of Earth need time to consider this offer. We cannot make such an important decision in a single meeting. You have 1 week, Zekthor replied. After that, we will require your answer. Choose wisely, humans. Pride is a luxury your species cannot afford. The aliens left without another word. As soon as the airlock closed behind them, the human delegation broke into heated discussion. Some wanted to accept the Coalition's terms, arguing that any contact with aliens was better than none. Others demanded that Earth reject the humiliating offer and stand alone. Kyle and Lisa walked back to the observation window and watched the alien ships depart. They did not speak for a long time. Finally, Lisa broke the silence. They think we are children who need babysitters. They think we are weak, Kyle agreed. They have no idea who they are dealing with. What are we going to do? Kyle smiled, though there was no humor in it. We are going to show them what humans are. Real 5 years had passed since the Galactic Coalition placed their energy barrier around Earth's solar system. The massive field of invisible force prevented any ship from entering or leaving. Humanity was trapped, cut off from the rest of the universe. But humans did not sit idle during those 5 years. Every nation on Earth poured resources into space exploration and military development. New weapons were designed, faster ships were built. Soldiers trained day and night for a war that might never come. Earth had become one unified force, focused on a single goal, breaking free from their prison. Ben Morrison commanded the flagship Defiant, the most advanced warship humanity had ever constructed. He stood on the bridge, watching his crew run through combat drills for the 100th time this month. They were ready for anything, but there was nothing to fight except their own boredom. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from outside the barrier." Ben moved to the communications station quickly. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, showing Zekthor's crystalline face. The alien looked different than Ben remembered from the archived footage of the first contact. Zekthor seemed tired, and the light moving through its body was dimmer than before. "Captain Morrison," Zekthor said, "I am contacting you on behalf of the Galactic Coalition. We have a proposal for humanity." "The last time you made a proposal, you locked us in our own solar system," Ben replied coldly. "Why should we listen to you now?" "Because the galaxy is burning," Zekthor answered simply. The alien explained the situation. A species called the Cathax swarm had emerged from deep space 6 months ago. They were unlike anything the Coalition had ever encountered. The Cathax were a hive mind, millions of individual creatures all controlled by a single consciousness. They consumed everything in their path, turning entire planets into barren rocks. 3 Coalition species had already fallen to the swarm. Their homeworlds were gone, their populations scattered across the galaxy as refugees. The Cathax were advancing faster than anyone could stop them. They did not negotiate, did not retreat, and did not show mercy. "The Coalition needs soldiers," Zekthor said. "We are willing to offer humanity limited partnership status in exchange for military assistance." Ben laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Let me understand this correctly. 5 years ago, you told us we were too weak to join your coalition. You said we were fragile creatures who needed protection. Now you want us to fight your war for you?" "The situation has changed," Zekthor admitted. "We need every able-bodied warrior we can find. Humanity has proven resourceful during your isolation. Your military capabilities have impressed our observers." "You have been watching us again," Ben noted. "We never stopped watching you." Ben ended the transmission and immediately contacted Earth's military command. Within hours, he was in a video conference with Jake Sullivan, Earth's top military strategist. Jake sat in his office in Geneva, reviewing the data that Zekthor had sent along with the proposal. "This is bad," Jake said, scrolling through images of destroyed worlds. "The Cathax are not just dangerous. They are efficient. They strip a planet of all resources in less than a week, then move on to the next target. If they continue at this pace, they will consume the entire galaxy within 20 years. "Do we help them?" Ben asked. Jake was quiet for a moment. "Not on their terms. If the Coalition wants our help, they need to give us full membership. No more Level 5 protected status. We want equal rights, equal votes, and complete access to their technology." "They will never agree to that," Ben said. "Then they can face the Cathax alone," Jake replied. "Call their bluff, Ben. They would not be asking if they had any other choice." Ben contacted Zekthor again. The alien appeared on screen within seconds, clearly waiting for Earth's response. "Here are our terms," Ben said firmly. "Full Coalition membership with all rights and privileges, complete technology sharing, equal representation in all Coalition decisions, and removal of the barrier around our solar system immediately." "That is unacceptable," Zekthor began. "Then we are done talking," Ben interrupted. "Good luck with your war, Zekthor. Earth will be fine behind our barrier. The Cathax cannot get through it any more than we can get out. We can wait this out while your Coalition crumbles." Ben reached for the disconnect button, but Zekthor's voice stopped him. "Wait. I will need to consult with the Coalition Council." "You have 1 hour," Ben said, then ended the transmission. 53 minutes later, Zekthor called back. The alien looked even more tired than before. "The Council has agreed to your terms. You will have full membership and all the benefits that come with it. But understand this, humans. If you fail us in battle, if you prove as weak as we originally believed, the consequences will be severe." "We will not fail," Ben said. "Send us the coordinates. Earth is ready to fight." The barrier around the solar system vanished that same day. Within a week, the first group of human volunteers was ready to deploy. 200 Marines under the command of Sergeant Amy Chen boarded transport ships bound for a planet called Kepler 442b. Amy was 32 years old and had been in the military since she was 18. She had trained for every possible combat scenario Earth could imagine. But as her transport ship approached Kepler 442b, she realized that nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to face. The planet's surface was covered in smoke and fire. Alien structures that had stood for thousands of years were now just ruins. In the distance, Amy could see movement. Thousands upon thousands of Kethak's warriors covered the landscape like a living carpet of death. The coalition commander on the ground was a massive creature with 6 legs and armor-plated skin. Its name was unpronounceable, so the humans called it Commander Horn. Horn greeted Amy's unit with obvious skepticism. "You are the human reinforcements," Horn asked, its voice like grinding stones. "You are so small, so fragile-looking. I requested real warriors, not children." "We are what you have got," Amy replied. "Where do you need us?" Horn pointed toward a ridge about 2 miles away. "The Kethaks will attack from that direction when the sun sets. They always attack at sunset. We have lost that position 4 times already. Every species we send there gets wiped out within hours." "Then we will hold it," Amy said. "You do not understand," Horn said. "The Kethaks do not stop. They do not tire. They do not feel fear. They will keep coming until you are all dead." Amy looked at her Marines. They were checking their weapons and preparing their equipment. None of them looked afraid. They looked ready. "Neither do we," Amy said. The Marines moved to the ridge and began setting up defensive positions. They had brought their own equipment from Earth, weapons and tools that the Coalition had never seen before. The alien observers watched with confusion as the humans dug trenches, placed sensors, and created fallback positions. As the sun began to set, the Kethak swarm appeared on the horizon. They moved like a wave of black death, thousands of creatures flowing across the ground. Each Kethak's warrior stood about 7 feet tall, with sharp claws and armored plates covering their bodies. They made a clicking sound as they moved, a horrible noise that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Amy stood at the center of her defensive line, watching the swarm approach. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. She had trained for this moment her entire adult life. "Hold your fire until they are in range," she ordered through the communication system. "Make every shot count, and remember, we are not here to die. We are here to win." The Kethaks crashed into the human defensive line like a tsunami hitting a beach. The noise was deafening. Weapons fired. Creatures screamed. The battle for Kepler 442b had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn what human resilience really meant. The first night of battle on Kepler 442b seemed to last forever. The Kethak's swarm attacked in waves, each one larger than the last. The creatures climbed over their own dead to reach the human defensive line. Their claws scraped against metal barriers. Their bodies slammed against reinforced walls. The clicking sound they made never stopped, filling the air with a noise that drove some soldiers to the edge of madness. But Sergeant Amy Chen kept her Marines focused. She moved along the line constantly, checking on her people, offering encouragement, and making tactical adjustments. When one section of the defense started to fail, she shifted resources to strengthen it. When ammunition ran low in one area, she redistributed supplies from positions that had more. By dawn of the second day, the human position still stood. The ground around their ridge was covered with dead Kethak's bodies, thousands of them piled on top of each other. But the swarm showed no signs of stopping. As the sun rose, new waves of creatures appeared on the horizon. Chris Murphy was a captain in the Earth military and a combat journalist. He had volunteered to document humanity's first major engagement with alien forces. Now he crouched in a bunker, recording everything he saw while bullets and energy blasts filled the air above him. "Day 2 on Kepler 442b, Chris spoke into his recording device. "The Kethaks attacked all night without stopping. We lost 12 soldiers in the first wave, 8 more in the second, but we are still here. The aliens in orbit did not think we would last 2 hours. We have lasted more than 12. Chris watched as a group of Marines worked to repair a damaged section of wall. They were using pieces of destroyed Kethax armor and broken alien technology to patch the holes. It was crude work, but it was effective. The humans were learning to use everything around them as a resource. On the third day, something changed. The Kethax started using different tactics. They sent smaller, faster creatures to probe for weaknesses in the human defenses. When they found a weak point, larger warriors would concentrate their attack there. Amy gathered her squad leaders for a quick meeting. "They are learning from us," she explained. "The swarm is adjusting to our defensive patterns. We need to adjust faster than they can." Lieutenant Ryan Parker had an idea. "What if we stop being defensive? What if we take the fight to them?" The other officers looked at him like he was crazy. "We barely have enough people to hold this ridge," one of them said. "You want us to attack? That is suicide." "Maybe," Ryan admitted. "But think about it. The Kethax expect us to sit here and defend. They are adapting to our defensive tactics. If we suddenly go on the offensive, we disrupt their pattern. We make them react to us instead of the other way around." Amy considered this for a moment. It was risky. It could get them all killed. But Ryan was right about one thing. The Kethax were adapting to human defenses. If the Marines kept doing the same thing, they would eventually be overwhelmed. "All right," Amy decided. "We will try it, but we do it smart. Small teams, fast attacks, then pull back to our main line. We hit them hard and disappear before they can respond." The tactic worked better than anyone expected. Small groups of Marines would burst out of the defensive line, attack a section of the swarm, and retreat before the Kethax could organize a response. The creatures became confused. Their coordination broke down. For the first time since the battle began, the Kethax started making mistakes. Up in orbit, the coalition commanders watched in amazement. Zekthor had brought in military experts from 6 different species to observe the human tactics. None of them could explain what they were seeing. "This should not be possible," one expert said. "The Kethax swarm has fought thousands of battles across hundreds of worlds. Their tactics are proven. Their coordination is perfect. How are these humans disrupting them so easily?" "They are not following any established military doctrine," another expert observed. "They change their tactics every few hours, sometimes every few minutes. The Kethax cannot predict what they will do next because the humans themselves do not seem to know what they will do next." Zekthor watched the battle screens in silence. The alien had lived for 300 years and had studied military history from across the galaxy. This was unlike anything in the records. The humans were improvising, adapting, and creating new tactics in the middle of combat. It should not work, but it was working. On the 4th day, disaster struck. A massive Kethax warrior, larger than any they had seen before, broke through the southern section of the human line. It was followed by dozens of smaller creatures. They overwhelmed the defenders before anyone could respond. Corporal Laura Hayes was the unit medic. She had been treating wounded soldiers in a bunker near the southern section when the breakthrough happened. Now she found herself cut off from the main defensive line with 12 injured Marines and no support. The coalition observers expected Laura to abandon the wounded and save herself. That was standard procedure in galactic warfare. Injured soldiers who could not move were left behind. It was harsh, but it was practical. Laura did not leave. She grabbed a rifle from a fallen Marine and positioned herself at the bunker entrance. The 12 wounded soldiers behind her could not fight. Some of them could not even move, but Laura would not abandon them. "Anyone who wants to get to my patients has to go through me first," she said to no one in particular. The Kethax came. Laura fired her rifle until it overheated, then switched to a pistol. When the pistol ran out of ammunition, she used a medical laser as a weapon. It was not designed for combat, but she made it work. She held the bunker entrance for 40 minutes alone, killing or driving back every Kethax that tried to enter. By the time Ryan Parker arrived with a rescue team, Laura had collapsed from exhaustion, but all 12 of her patients were still alive. The Coalition observers could not believe what they had just witnessed. Sacrificing yourself for wounded soldiers made no tactical sense. It did not help win battles. It was inefficient and emotional. But as they watched the other human Marines react to Laura's actions, they began to understand something important. The other soldiers fought harder after hearing about what Laura had done. They took greater risks to protect each other. The entire unit became more effective, not less, because one soldier had refused to abandon the wounded. They fight for each other, Zekthor said quietly. Not just for victory, not just for survival. They fight for each other. On the 5th day, Ryan organized his most ambitious attack yet. He gathered 30 volunteers and explained his plan. They were going to destroy the Cathax staging area, the place where new warriors were gathering before joining the attack. It was deep in enemy territory, surrounded by thousands of hostile creatures. "This is crazy," one of the volunteers said. "Yes," Ryan agreed, "but if we can disrupt their staging area, we might buy ourselves another day or two, maybe long enough for real reinforcements to arrive." They moved out at midnight, traveling light and fast. The team used the darkness and the confusing terrain to avoid most of the Cathax patrols. When they reached the staging area, they planted explosives made from damaged alien shield generators. The devices were not designed to be bombs. But Ryan had figured out that if you overloaded a shield generator and removed its safety systems, it would explode with tremendous force. It was dangerous and unpredictable. It was also exactly the kind of improvised solution that humans excelled at creating. The explosions lit up the night sky. The Cathax staging area was destroyed in seconds. Thousands of creatures died in the blast. The survivors scattered in confusion. Ryan's team made it back to the human lines with only 2 casualties. The Cathax swarm, for the first time in their 1,000-year history, withdrew from a ground engagement. They did not retreat far, but they pulled back from the human defensive line and stopped their attacks. The creatures needed time to reorganize, to analyze what had happened, to adapt to these strange new opponents. The human Marines had won. They had not destroyed the Cathax. They had not driven them off the planet. But they had forced the swarm to stop, to pause, to reconsider. That had never happened before. Amy stood on the ridge, looking out at the enemy forces in the distance. Her uniform was torn and dirty. She had not slept in 3 days. Half her unit was wounded. They were almost out of ammunition and food. By any reasonable measure, they should have lost this battle days ago. But they were still standing, still fighting, still refusing to give up. Zekthor entered the restricted archive section of the Coalition database alone. The room was deep inside the flagship, protected by security systems that had not been activated in over a century. The data stored here was considered too dangerous for most species to access. It contained knowledge from the architects, the first civilization to unite the galaxy 10,000 years ago. The architects had been powerful beyond imagination. They had created technology that modern species still could not fully understand. They had mapped the entire known universe. They had established the foundations of galactic law and cooperation. And then, for reasons no one fully understood, they had simply vanished. Before they disappeared, the architects left behind a guide. It was meant to help future civilizations avoid the mistakes that had led to the downfall of previous galactic empires. Most of the guide was practical advice about trade, diplomacy, and technology sharing. But there was one section that had always troubled Coalition leaders. It was a warning about dangerous species. Zekthor activated the ancient files and began searching. The database was enormous, containing millions of documents in languages that had been dead for thousands of years. The translation systems struggled with some of the older texts, but eventually, Zekthor found what he was looking for. The document was titled Terminal Resilience, a Survival Trait to Fear. Zekthor read the text carefully. The architects had never encountered a species with terminal resilience, but they had theorized about what such a species might be like. According to their analysis, terminal resilience was a combination of several traits that, when found together, created the most dangerous force in the universe. The first trait was extreme adaptability. A species with terminal resilience could survive in almost any environment. They could learn new skills quickly. They could adjust their behavior to match changing circumstances. They did not need perfect conditions to thrive. The second trait was refusal to accept defeat. Even when facing impossible odds, a species with terminal resilience would continue fighting. They would find hope in hopeless situations. They would see opportunities where others saw only disaster. Surrender was not in their nature. The third trait was the ability to function under severe stress. While other species would break down mentally and physically under extreme pressure, a species with terminal resilience would actually perform better. Stress made them sharper, faster, more creative. The fourth trait was perhaps the most dangerous. A species with terminal resilience would learn from every failure. Each defeat would make them stronger. Each setback would teach them lessons they would never forget. They would never make the same mistake twice. Zekthor felt something close to fear as he read the document. The description matched humanity perfectly. Every single trait was something he had observed in the human soldiers on Kepler 442b. The architects had written a warning at the end of the document. If a species with terminal resilience ever evolves, it will reshape the galaxy. Such a species cannot be controlled, cannot be defeated, and cannot be ignored. They will either save civilization from destruction or become the greatest threat civilization has ever known. There is no middle ground. Zekthor closed the file and sat in silence for a long time. The Coalition had made a terrible error 5 years ago. They had judged humanity based on physical strength and natural weapons. They had completely missed the traits that actually mattered. Meanwhile, on Kepler 442b, the human forces were regrouping. Kate Morrison had arrived with fresh supplies and more troops. She was a commander in Earth's space fleet, and she brought 300 additional Marines with her. Kate met with Amy in what remained of the command bunker. The two women had served together before the alien contact, and they trusted each other completely. "I heard what you did here," Kate said. "Command is calling it a miracle. The Coalition thought you would be wiped out in hours, but you held for 6 days." Amy shook her head. "It was not a miracle. It was just people refusing to quit. We lost good soldiers, Kate. 23 dead, 41 wounded. But we did not let their sacrifice be meaningless." "The Cuthaks have pulled back to regroup," Kate reported. "Our intelligence says they are bringing in reinforcements. The next attack will be even bigger than the last one." "Then we better be ready," Amy replied. Over the next 2 weeks, the human forces on Kepler 442b did something the Coalition had never seen before. They did not just defend their position, they expanded it. They reclaimed territory that the Cuthaks had conquered months ago. They built new defensive structures. They established supply lines. They turned a desperate last stand into a forward operating base. Human engineers studied the damaged alien technology scattered across the battlefield. They figured out how it worked and started incorporating it into their own equipment. A shield generator designed for a completely different species was modified to protect human bunkers. A weapon system from a destroyed alien tank was adapted to fit on human vehicles. The Coalition observers could not understand how humans did this so quickly. It took most species years of study to understand alien technology. The humans were doing it in days, sometimes hours. They did not follow proper scientific procedure. They just experimented until something worked. Zekthor shared the architect document with the Coalition Council. The reaction was mixed. Some leaders refused to believe that humanity could be the species described in the ancient warning. Others wanted to quarantine Earth again immediately before humans became too powerful to control. We cannot put them back in their cage, Zekthor argued. We released them. We asked for their help, and they are winning battles that our own forces could not win. If we turn against them now, we will create an enemy far more dangerous than the Kethax. The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. Humanity would remain part of the coalition, but they would be carefully watched. Any sign that humans were becoming a threat would be dealt with immediately. Zekthor knew this was a mistake, but there was nothing more he could do. The council was afraid of what humanity might become. They did not understand that it was already too late. The humans had proven themselves in battle. They had earned the respect of warriors from a dozen different species. They had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten. On Kepler 442b, the Kethax launched their second major offensive. This time, they brought 5 times as many warriors as before. The attack came from 3 directions simultaneously. It was the kind of assault that should have overwhelmed any defensive position. But the humans were ready. They had spent 2 weeks preparing for exactly this scenario. Every soldier knew their role. Every defensive position had been reinforced. Every weapon had been tested and zeroed. Ryan commanded the northern section of the defense. He watched the approaching swarm through his rifle scope and felt his heart rate slow down. This was what he had trained for. This was what humanity had evolved to do, not running from danger, but facing it head-on. "Hold your fire," he ordered calmly. "Let them get close. Make them think we are afraid." The Kethax charged forward, their clicking sounds growing louder with each passing second. They were 50 meters away, then 40, then 30. "Now," Ryan said quietly. The human defensive line erupted with coordinated fire. Every weapon fired at once, creating a wall of destruction that the Kethax could not penetrate. But this was just the first part of the plan. While the Kethax focused on the main defensive line, small teams of human soldiers attacked from the sides and rear. They used the same improvised explosive devices that had worked during the first battle, but this time they were better prepared and better coordinated. 3 years after the Battle of Kepler 442b, the war against the Kethax swarm finally ended. The final hive world fell to a combined coalition fleet led by human commanders. The victory was complete, but it had cost billions of lives and hundreds of worlds. The galaxy would never be the same. Danny Wright stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching as the last Kethax structures burned on the planet below. He had started the war as a lieutenant. Now he was a major and the first human to command a joint alien-human task force. His fleet included ships from 8 different species, all following his orders without question. It had taken 2 years of combat for the other species to accept human leadership. But after watching humans win battle after battle through tactics that seemed insane until they worked, the aliens had learned to trust Earth's military minds. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving surrender signals from the remaining Kethax ground forces." Danny nodded. "Accept their surrender. Make sure the medical teams are ready to treat any wounded, both ours and theirs." This was another thing that had shocked the coalition. Humans treated their enemies with mercy after victory. They provided medical care to wounded Kethax warriors. They established prison camps with decent living conditions. They followed rules of warfare that most galactic species had abandoned centuries ago. At first, the aliens thought this was weakness. Then they noticed something strange. Species that had been conquered by the Kethax were more willing to cooperate with coalition forces after seeing how humans treated prisoners. Information about Kethax tactics and weaknesses began flowing in from former enemy territory. The human practice of mercy was actually a tactical advantage. Back on Earth, the planet had been transformed by 3 years of war. The unified world government had become permanent. Earth's economy had shifted from peacetime production to supporting the largest military force in coalition history. Human engineers had revolutionized galactic technology by combining alien designs with Earth innovations. But more importantly, Earth had proven itself. No species in the coalition doubted human capabilities anymore. The question now was what humanity would do with their newfound power and influence. Kyle Harrison sat in his office at Coalition headquarters, reviewing proposals for post-war reconstruction. As Earth's chief ambassador, he had spent 3 years negotiating treaties, organizing relief efforts, and managing relationships with dozens of alien species. It had been exhausting, but also rewarding. Zekthor entered the office without knocking. The alien had become Kyle's closest friend in the coalition, though their relationship had started with mutual suspicion. "The Council has made a decision," Zekthor said. "They want to offer humanity a permanent seat on the Coalition Security Council." Kyle looked up from his work. "That is a significant gesture. What changed their minds?" "Reality," Zekthor replied, sitting down in a chair designed for his crystalline body. "The Council finally accepted what I have been telling them for 3 years. Humanity is not going away. You cannot be controlled or contained. The only question is whether we work with you or against you. Working with you seems much safer." "We never wanted to be anyone's enemy," Kyle said. "We just wanted to be treated with respect." "I know," Zekthor said quietly. "And I am sorry for how we treated your species during first contact. We judged you by the wrong standards. We measured strength by muscle and armor instead of determination and adaptability. It was a mistake that almost cost us everything." Kyle accepted the apology with a nod. What else did the Council decide? "They want to establish the Galactic Union, a new organization to replace the old coalition. Every member species will have equal representation. Human military doctrine will become the standard for all Union forces. Earth technology will be shared with all members, and in return, Earth will have full access to the complete galactic database." It was everything humanity had wanted and more. Kyle should have been celebrating, but something bothered him. "Why do I feel like there is more to this?" he asked. Zekthor's body flickered with colors that indicated discomfort. "Because there is. The Council is afraid of humanity. They have read the architect warnings about terminal resilience. They know what your species is capable of. This offer of partnership is partly genuine and partly an attempt to keep you close, where they can watch you." "Do they think we are going to conquer the galaxy?" Kyle asked with a slight smile. "Some of them do," Zekthor admitted. "They look at human history and see endless warfare. They see how quickly you adapted to galactic combat. They worry about what happens when you decide you do not need the Union anymore." Kyle stood up and walked to the window. Earth was visible in the distance, a blue and green jewel floating in the darkness of space. His homeworld had changed so much in just 8 years since first contact, but in many ways it was still the same planet it had always been. "Tell the Council that humanity accepts their offer," Kyle said. "But also tell them this. We do not want to conquer anyone. We have spent our entire history learning that conquest leads to suffering, and suffering leads to collapse. We want to build something better. We want to create a galaxy where every species is treated with dignity and respect." "They will ask for proof of your intentions," Zekthor warned. "Then let them watch what we do, not what we say," Kyle replied. "Actions speak louder than words." Over the next year, humanity proved Kyle's point. Human engineers helped rebuild worlds destroyed by the Kithaks. Human diplomats negotiated peace agreements between species that had been fighting for generations. Human scientists shared discoveries freely instead of hoarding them for Earth's benefit. Lisa Patterson, who had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Union forces, revolutionized military training across the galaxy. She established academies on a dozen worlds, teaching alien soldiers the tactics that had made human forces so effective. The key lesson was simple: adaptability beats strength every time. Your natural advantages do not matter as much as you think. Lisa told a class of alien officers. What matters is your ability to learn, to adjust, to find solutions when there are no obvious answers. Physical strength fails eventually. Technology breaks down. But the ability to adapt and overcome, that never fails. The aliens struggled with these concepts at first. Most species had rigid military traditions that went back thousands of years. Changing those traditions was difficult and uncomfortable, but the results spoke for themselves. Units trained in human doctrine were 3 times more effective than traditionally trained forces. Meanwhile, Earth's influence continued to grow in other areas. Human music became popular across the galaxy. Alien species were fascinated by the variety of styles and emotions expressed in Earth songs. Human art began appearing in alien museums. Human literature was translated into hundreds of languages. Some coalition species worried about cultural contamination. They feared that human influence would erase their own traditions and customs. But most species found that exposure to human culture actually strengthened their own. Humans were curious about alien ways of life and eager to learn from them. This mutual exchange created something new and beautiful. Danny Wright retired from military service and became a teacher. He opened a school on Kepler 442b, the world where humanity had proven itself in battle. Students from across the galaxy came to learn about human history, philosophy, and tactics. Why did humans survive when other species would have failed? A young alien student asked during one class. Danny thought about the question carefully. Because we learned early in our evolution that survival requires 2 things. First, you need to work together. Humans are social creatures. We protect each other, help each other, and build communities that are stronger than any individual. Second, you need to never give up. Earth is a dangerous planet. Our ancestors faced ice ages, predators, diseases, and disasters that should have wiped us out. But they survived because they refused to accept extinction. So resilience is the key to survival? Another student asked. Resilience is more than just survival, Danny explained. It is about thriving in the face of adversity. It is about finding hope when everything seems hopeless. It is about learning from failure and becoming stronger because of it. That is what makes humanity different. Not because we are better than other species, but because we learned these lessons the hard way and never forgot them. Back at Coalition headquarters, Zekthor and Kyle watched the news reports coming in from across the galaxy. The post-war reconstruction was going better than anyone had expected. Crime rates were down, trade was up, former enemy species were learning to cooperate. The galaxy was healing. You were right, Zekthor said. Humanity did not want to conquer. You wanted to build. We have done enough conquering in our own history, Kyle replied. We know where that path leads. This time we are trying something different. The Council is starting to trust you, Zekthor continued. They see what you are doing and they understand that you mean what you say. But there are still some who fear you. Fear is natural, Kyle said. We are different from every other species in the Union. Our resilience makes us unpredictable. But fear can be overcome with time and patience. We will prove ourselves through our actions, one day at a time. Years passed. The Galactic Union grew stronger. New species were welcomed as equals. Old conflicts were resolved through diplomacy instead of warfare. Earth's contributions to art, science, and philosophy enriched the entire galaxy. Historians later called this period the Great Awakening. It was a time when the galaxy remembered what the architects had tried to teach them 10,000 years ago. Power was not measured by strength or technology. True power came from the ability to adapt, to overcome, and to never surrender to despair. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through force. They had transformed it through example. They showed every species that resilience was not just about surviving. It was about thriving, growing, and helping others do the same. The aliens had feared the wrong things when they first met humanity. They worried about human weapons, human aggression, and human ambition. They should have paid attention to human compassion, human creativity, and human determination to make things better. In the end, humanity's greatest superpower was not their ability to fight. It was their refusal to give up on the possibility of a better future. That hope, that stubborn optimism in the face of darkness, was the force that reshaped the galaxy. And it all started because Earth refused to accept subordination, because humans chose freedom over safety, because they believed they were capable of more than anyone else thought possible. The galaxy learned its lesson. Never underestimate a species that refuses to quit. The Cathax swarm had never faced an enemy that could match their coordination while also being completely unpredictable. The humans worked together like a hive mind, but they also improvised like individuals. It was a combination that should not have been possible. The battle lasted for 3 days. When it finally ended, the Cathax had been pushed back almost 10 miles from their original position. The humans had not just defended Kepler 442b, they had started to take it back. News of the victory spread across the coalition. Other species that had lost worlds to the Cathax began to feel something they had not felt in months. They began to feel hope. Zekthor watched the reports coming in from Kepler 442b and knew that the galaxy had changed forever. The architects had been right. A species with terminal resilience would reshape everything. Humanity had arrived and nothing would ever be the same again. The question was whether humans would save the galaxy or destroy it. Zekthor hoped it would be the former, but he knew that the answer would depend on how the coalition treated Earth from this point forward. If they welcomed humanity as equals, the galaxy might survive. If they tried to control or suppress them, the results would be catastrophic. The ancient warning echoed in Zekthor's mind. There is no middle ground. The coalition would have to choose which path to follow, and they would have to choose soon. Chris recorded one final message. Day 6 on Kepler 442b. We held the line. The Cathax have stopped attacking. We do not know if this is a victory or just a pause before the next wave. But we are still here. Against all odds, against an enemy that has never been stopped before, we are still here. In orbit, Zekthor made a decision. The alien accessed the coalition's most secure database, the one containing records that went back 10,000 years. There was something in those ancient files, a warning from the species that had founded the coalition. A warning about a type of species that might someday appear. Zekthor needed to know if humanity was what the ancient records described, because if they were, the galaxy was about to change in ways no one could predict. The humans had proven they could fight. Now Zekthor needed to know if they were the most dangerous species in the universe or the only hope for survival against the Cathax swarm. The Battle of Kepler 442b was over, but the war had just begun. Up in orbit, Zekthor and the other coalition commanders watched the battle unfold on their screens. They expected to see the human position overrun within the first hour. They expected to see another failed defense, another group of warriors consumed by the unstoppable swarm. But as the minutes turned into hours, something strange happened. The humans were still fighting. More than that, they were adapting. Every time the Cathax changed their attack pattern, the humans changed their defense. Every time a weakness appeared in the human line, they adjusted to cover it. This is impossible, one of the alien commanders said. No species adapts this quickly. It takes months of combat experience to fight the Cathax effectively. Zekthor said nothing. The alien was beginning to suspect that the coalition had made a terrible mistake 5 years ago. They had judged humanity by the wrong standards. Physical strength did not matter. Natural weapons did not matter. What mattered was the ability to survive, to learn, and to refuse to surrender. And in those areas, humans might be the strongest species the galaxy had ever seen. Lie made of. We are going to reject their offer. Lisa turned to look at him. You know they will quarantine us. Yes, Kyle said. But quarantines do not last forever, and when we finally break free, the galaxy will learn that humanity bows to no one. The decision was made. Earth would face the unknown alone, and the aliens would soon discover that they had underestimated the human species in the worst possible way.